Why did the British government take away your passport?
That's the question that we all want to know the answer to. Guilty by association with a degree of separation.
And association with a man who is now the president of Syria.
Like, I'm not cutting your head off because you're not wearing a hijab, am I?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's good of you.
For 13 years, Syria was mired in a grinding civil war against a brutal dictator. Now, the country is starting a new chapter with a new leader. But some of those who fought for that new chapter now find themselves in limbo.
We're in northern Syria and we're driving now to meet our guest today. British aid worker Tawqir Sharif, known as Tox, was one of tens of thousands of foreigners known as Muhajirin who came here to Syria to participate in the uprising against the dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad. Now, I first met Tox in 2016 here in Syria. He has always maintained that he's not a fighter, that he's not a part of any jihadist group. But in 2017, the British Foreign Office made the decision to strip him of his citizenship, saying that effectively he was aligned with a group that was aligned with Al-Qaeda. So we're going to be talking to Tox about life here in Syria, his efforts to get his British passport back, and what the future looks like for foreign fighters now that there is a new government in charge. I have to say, I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I would be eating a full English breakfast in northern Syria. Thank you, Raquel. Wow.
English breakfast.
Oh my goodness.
On a Syrian tray.
For anyone who's listening or watching who has no idea what the full English breakfast actually is, and I must say there are some modifications in this one. Talk me through what's on the menu today.
A full English is basically toast, fried egg, beans. We don't have halal sausages, so we had salami instead. That's your English.
Bon appetit.
Bismillah.
Bismillah. Bon appetit. So is this normally what you would have for breakfast here?
Yeah, sometimes you gotta have a bit of a nostalgic breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like in your heart, do you feel like you're British?
Do I feel in my heart that I'm British? I feel conflicted actually. Mm-hmm. Because it's interesting because you're always taught, right, that we are all Brits,
right,
etc. But that Britishness, I feel that can never be taken out of me. And there's a lot of good things, obviously, that I took from being born in London, being in a multi-ethnically diverse society. So that part of me, I don't think can ever leave me. That's always going to be a part of me. But in terms of being a Brit, the way I've been dealt with,
right,
doesn't really make you feel very British.
A Briton who insists he went to Syria to volunteer as an aid worker has been stripped of his citizenship.
So let's take it back a bit for people who are watching who don't know your backstory. When did you come here to Syria and why did you end up losing your British citizenship?
So I came to Syria in 2012, beginning of the revolution. A group of guys came to me and they were like, look, we want you to lead a convoy to Syria. And at that time I was like, you guys are crazy. I was like, why do you want to do it? I didn't know the nuances of, everything that was taking place in the conflict.
For 12 months now, Assad's regime has lied about killing its own people.
The chaos spawned countless local militias and opposition forces.
After, them schooling me up and educating me on what was going on, we managed to bring the first convoy of 11 ambulances out. Mm-hmm. That was April 2012. And then, I never really looked back. End of the year, Raquel came out with me, my wife came out with me, she came out. And then we just stayed.
And just so people understand, were you always an aid worker? Were you involved in the armed component of the uprising as well?
So I would say I was always a humanitarian.
But you're smiling while you're saying that.
Because a humanitarian encompasses many things, right? Saving lives. So sometimes in order to save lives, you have to, fight and defend people. Mm-hmm. So would I say that I'm an all-out fighter? No, that wasn't my, bread and butter. I wasn't fighting in battles every single day. But during the course of this conflict, I had to fight. And that was because I had to defend people that were around me. I had to defend aid that was being delivered to, oppressed people. And I'm not shy about saying that. I mean, if I was a fighter, if that was my gig where I was fighting and I was a military commander, I would be very proud of that.
So I guess the bigger question is, were you part of a specific group? Because a lot of the concern around foreigners who came here to northern Syria to participate in the uprising against Bashar al-Assad was that some of them were joining proscribed organizations like ISIS, like Jabhat al-Nusra. Were you part of any group or a member of any group?
See, this is the thing, right? I got asked this before.
Yeah.
And we always maintained our independence. And I think that was important for me, especially someone that, as well as being someone who's worked as a humanitarian,
Yeah.
but also worked as a human rights activist, I always thought that the best thing for the Syrian people was to remain independent. And I've been vocal since I've been here, publicly against groups like ISIS, against Jabhat al-Nusra, against HTS.
So I guess then, why did the British government take away your passport?
That's the question that we all want to know the answer to.
What's the official reason that you've been given?
The official reason was aligned to a group that is aligned to Al-Qaeda.
Aligned to a group that is aligned to Al-Qaeda.
Again, I was publicly vocal against those groups about some of the things that they were doing previously. I was imprisoned for that. And that could only happen if you're independent. Eat up.
Yeah. You have 3 wives, is that correct?
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to lie. As a woman, I find that, like, it's hard to get my head around that.
Again, I think it's different. I think the problem we have in the West, right? So look, I love a lot of things about the West, but then I think a lot of this proselytization and trying to kind of have everybody live the same way we do, I find that problematic. It's not there's no ideal society, right?
Right.
That we can live in. So when it comes to something like polygyny and me having more than one wife, that's just a personal preference. That's something that, my religion allows for. It was something that, to be honest, in Syria for us was very strategic as well. So with Raquel, she actually met my second wife before I did. Mm-hmm. And that was very early on in the conflict. I had a conversation with her where I was like, look, I'm going to certain frontline areas. I might go and I might not come back. You're getting left in certain areas. We don't have a family. We don't have anybody to look after us. I was like, look, generally, Syria is a tribal country. If you marry into a tribe, the tribe will look after you. So we had that discussion, and this is something the Prophet, peace be upon him, done. He married into certain tribes and it brought tribes together. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, I don't want to pry, and it's your personal business, but I just wonder, it's like, you said it's like a personal lifestyle choice. Like, was it a choice for your wife as well, or was it something she kind of had to go along with? Because,
I mean, again, it's a choice, right? She doesn't have to stay with me.
right.
I mean, at the end of the day, Islamically, first of all, ethically and morally, you have people that are in polygamous relationships in the West. You got like Mormons, and you got different people. You got Andrew Tates and Dan Bilzerians, and you got all these people that have, loads of mistresses and
I'm not
girlfriends.
sure you're helping your case here.
No, but but the point I'm making is that from a Western paradigm,
Right.
there's no issue for a man to have more than one mistress. But if he wants to marry more than one woman, it's a problem. So, for example, for me now, being married to more than one woman is very difficult. It's not easy. It's a massive responsibility.
Have you bitten off more than you can chew, so to speak?
I think I've kind of reached my limit, but no, there's...
So you're not going for the 4th?
No.
You're going to stop at 3?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Let's talk a little bit about the moment that we're in now, here in Syria, right? I came to see you here 9 years ago and did a story about the work you were doing.
We need to look at what do the people really want, and if the people are Muslims, this is not me saying it, if the people are Muslims and they want some form of Islamic governance, then it's important that we help them to establish that.
Is that what they want?
In my opinion, that's what I believe.
At that time, the Russians had really thrown their weight behind the regime, and it was sort of seemed like the beginning of the end for the rebels. Like the tipping point had been reached. The momentum was in favor of the regime with its Russian and Iranian backers. Fast forward to December, and we have this like extraordinary turn of events over the course of several weeks.
For more than 50 years, the Assad regime ruled Syria as a brutal dictatorship. Well, that came to an end over the weekend when rebel forces seized control of the capital city, Damascus.
The interim leader, Ahmad al-Sharaa, led the militant group responsible for the lightning offensive that took down the Assad regime in a matter of weeks.
His group was formed out of an al-Qaeda affiliate. In 2018, the U.S. put a $10 million bounty on his head.
What was your reaction in that moment, like as this was happening?
We all knew that there was going to be an impending battle. We'd started to hear about that, and forces were being readied. Syria was a small place.
Right.
We were all holed up in the north, in the northern territories. Word spreads fast. Everybody knew there's a battle coming. Because everybody knows somebody here who's a family member, who's a fighter, who's connected to a military group, etc. I mean, where we are now, Azaz was literally a front line. We were like 5 kilometers away from the front line. And then things just happened, things just happened so fast. What shocked even the government, HTS, and all of the other military groups was everybody just got up and picked up a gun. Your local taxi driver, the barber, people from the refugee camps, everybody was just like, we're going to fight. And so it became so organic that you just had this wave of people that were they had just had enough.
So what was your reaction when you understood that it was over?
It's like a dream. There's a famous saying that says that those who fight for human rights really get to enjoy them.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is really a historic moment because we've won. I even had an amazing moment where I was in the airport and some of the Syrians coming off the airport, coming back to Syria, one of them came and kissed me on the head. And he said, if it wasn't for you Muhajirin, I would never be, stepping foot back in my country and seeing my family. So that was a beautiful moment.
You talk about the Syrian thanking you and thanking the Muhajirin, the people who came to join the fight or join the uprising. Do you still feel welcome here in this new Syria? Is there more of a question mark now around what happens to foreigners, whether they were fighters, whether they were aid workers?
I mean, I definitely still feel welcome. Like I said, we're very embedded in the society, so we have a massive team and we work in all different provinces. The people the Syrian people are very hospitable people. So generally, the general feeling is that the Muhajirin, they fought, they bled, they supported our conflict. Of course, they should be a part of Syria. Are there some nefarious actors? There are. There are people that, say, the Muhajirin shouldn't be here, they should leave now, etc. But that's a minority. And even Ahmed al-Sharaa, the new president, he himself has made really good statements about foreigners and them being included. That's an Islamic idea that, anyone can be a part of this community. Doesn't matter where you're from, as long as you're a good, upstanding citizen.
With that in mind, we see now Syria moving closer to the West, right? We have seen President Sharaa meet with President Macron, and then the moment that I don't think anyone really imagined was the meeting with President Trump. What was your reaction? And not just yours, but like your community, let's say, the other Muhajirin, the foreigners. And be honest.
Look, I think me as a Muhajir, I'm a bit of an anomaly, so my position is way more nuanced. Look, I understand that this was a political victory. It wasn't a military victory. So concessions were going to have to be made. I think for most people, they understand it. A lot of Muhajirin. See, the thing is, another problem that we have is like we have a stereotype that all Muhajirin are these hard-lined, extremist people that don't have any understanding of politics whatsoever. I think you'll find that if there was actually a survey and a cross-reference done of Muhajirin, you're going to find that many people who came to Syria are professionals, they're educated, they have a plethora of skills. So people understand that, look, this wasn't a full military victory. The Russians stepping back, America intervening, all of these things that happened is the reason why the new government has control of the country and people's lives are getting better, so concessions are being made. Obviously, where people are upset is when it comes to the Israel-Palestine issue. because obviously signing the Abraham Accords and stuff like that.
As Trump actually asked President al-Shara to do.
Yeah. That is something that people are obviously very upset about. Not just Muhajirin, I think most people in the Arab world, don't like the idea of that. The other thing that people are uncertain of is, okay, are Muhajirin going to be given citizenship, etc.? What's their status going to be? But I personally, I don't think that, they're going to have anything to worry about.
There are, as you well know, as I know, also some real hardliner Islamist Muhajirin as well. And I just wonder, not just about President al-Shara meeting with President Trump, but also about the fact that, hey, I'm sitting here in Syria and I'm not wearing a hijab and it's not mandatory. And by the way, if I was in Damascus, there are places where I can get an alcoholic beverage and there's no immediate plan on the cards to implement Sharia law. And so I'm wondering if you're one of those hardliners and you came here to create a sort of utopian Islamic state, not the Islamic state that ISIS was trying to build, but still an Islamic state.
I like that nuance that you put in there. I like that little caveat. Sorry.
Right, it's an important caveat, but my question still remains, are people not feeling a little bit disappointed because this isn't necessarily what they signed up for?
So look, I'm a well-read person. And even throughout Islamic history, this idea of utopia doesn't really exist, right? So when it comes to this idea of, Sharia law, first of all, I think that most people don't understand Sharia law. That word has become loaded. I wouldn't even use Sharia law. I'd say I came here to stop oppression. That's the reason why I came here. I came here to stop the blood of the Syrian people being spilled, to make sure that their lives would be better, and for them to have the right to self-determination. I've always said that if they, as Syrians, are Muslims and they want Islam, then they should have the right to have that. It shouldn't be for anyone, whether from the West or from anywhere else, to come and impose their ideals or their understandings, which unfortunately we see a lot. Where the West wants to come in, and it failed in Afghanistan. Look at what America, they tried to push certain ideals and it imploded in their face. Where did that get them 20 years later?
I get what you're saying, but the original question, and it's not so much for you, but for the hardliners who you know, and I know you know them, are they not feeling a little disillusioned in this moment?
Of course, there's going to be some people that are disillusioned. Of course, there's going to be people that want an Islamic state, but again, not an ISIS Islamic state, an Islamic state that is just an Islamic state that looks after the rights of all people, ethnic minorities, etc. So, I mean, it's one of those things you can't please everybody, right?
And would that Islamic state have, or what kind of a relationship would it have with Israel?
I mean, I'm not in charge of the Islamic State, so I wouldn't know. I mean, look, I think we're being very narrow. Look, when you're talking about any kind of Islamic governance, you can speak about the Ottomans, you can speak about the Abbasids, you can speak about, throughout history, there's been many forms of Islamic governance, right? And they all had interactions with the non-Muslim world, if you want to call it that, right? Even now, you have Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia, you have Turkey, you have all of these different countries that have interactions with the rest of the world. So this kind of idea that, if an Islamic state came, I think this has been proliferated by ISIS, that Islam is here to come and take over and conquer everybody and kill everybody and they can't coexist with anybody. It's never been like that. If you look at Palestine and you look at the Palestinian issue, Muslims, Jews and Christians lived in Palestine side by side in peace. But if you're talking about scary ISIS Islam, yeah, of course, you got people that are head choppers and that want to do all this kind of stuff. But then again, if you're going to talk about right-wing, neo-Nazi politics in the West, you also have people that are crazy, that want, this, blonde hair, blue eyes, community, but they're the fringes of society. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I guess as well, what's really striking to me is that President al-Shara has gone from being the leader of a prescribed organization with ties to Al-Qaeda to the president of Syria with good relations with the West. I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind can fully comprehend a 180 like that. I don't know that we've ever seen a political turnaround like that. And
It seems a bit movie-like, right?
I mean, genuinely, like if you wrote it in a Hollywood script, people would be like, that's a bit over the top. Like the
Yeah.
Al-Qaeda guy's never going to become president. Well, and of course the argument is he's not Al-Qaeda anymore and he hasn't been Al-Qaeda for
It
many
happens
years.
though, innit? Look, Nelson Mandela was a militarized version of the ANC. He militarized the ANC, right? So it's not the IRA. The IRA was bombing Britain. So these things have happened before. Again, I don't think it's something... Look, at the end of the day, the West realizes, and not just the West, any empire, right? Let's talk about it as the American empire who are ruling the world right now. They understand that in order to maintain power, they can't have chaos. And they're going to have to deal with whether it's a vassal state like medieval times or whether it's, different peoples in order to keep a sense of order. And I think that's what America's doing. And I think that's what, Ahmed al-Shara, the president, understands that, he has to make certain moves. Do I agree with everything that they're doing? Maybe not. But then again, I'm a humanitarian. I have the leisure of being able to just help people. And, I would never wish to be in some of these leadership positions because, in all honesty, they're difficult.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't want to be someone that has to sign the Abraham Accords because I'd feel that that's treachery to the Palestinian people. I'd feel that that's absolute treachery because, they are being absolutely brutalized and massacred. Thankfully, I don't have to. When you're in charge of millions of people, and now you have to think about Syria and you have to think about the good of the people here, they're decisions that you have to make.
Does it strike you as bizarre or maybe even unfair, surreal, I don't know, you choose the word, that President al-Shara is leading the country, he's meeting with Western leaders, and yet you are not even able to go back to your home because you had your passport taken away because you were aligned with a group that was aligned with Al-Qaeda, right? Like, I mean, that's a tenuous, nebulous connection.
Yeah. It's
to
guilty by association with a degree of separation.
and association with a man who is now the president of Syria. So
who had clear ties. Someone who had clear ties, who was a part of Al-Qaeda, is now legitimate, whereas people like myself are, still in limbo.
and,
Yeah,
and you're not the only one. I mean, there's
Yeah, there's others. Of course, I think 100% it's 100% unfair. But this is the world we live in, right? I mean, when I came out here, I was under I wasn't under any impression that it was going to be easy. And again, I mean, look, these are the double standards and the hypocrisies of the West, right? You come out to help Syrians free themselves of oppression from Bashar al-Assad. You're stateless. You go and fight in the IDF, be a part of an army that is being accused of genocide, of war crimes, and you can come back to the UK. You have no questioning, you have no issues at all, no inquest. Those are blatant double standards, and they are problems. The framing is very much one of, if it's not Western culture, then it cannot coexist with us, which is problematic. I think that makes the world black and white, whereas the beauty of the world is that you've got different cultures, you've got different people that want to live in different ways, and as long as they can coexist, why shouldn't they? Right? I don't want to see Syria as a dictatorship. Now, some people might say the Islamic model is dictatorship. I'd say no, that's not. Again, what is the Islamic project? What is
But do you
Islam?
want to see it as a Western-style democracy?
No, I don't want to see it as a Western-style democracy. Look, if you look at the West now, there's many problems there. Just look at the family unit in the West. You have people in the West talking about how it's been degraded, how it no longer exists. So, is there an ideal model? I don't believe that an ideal model exists on Earth today. We should work towards it. We should hope that we can. And I'm hopeful. I'm really optimistic. I mean, like I said, we're working closely now with loads of organizations, the government, we're opening new projects, we're trying to rebuild Syria, and that's hopefully what we will be a part of. And if they're smart, they'll give us citizenships.
Do you feel that you're Syrian?
I wouldn't say I feel, I mean, I'm a citizen of the world, Clarissa.
Me too.
I'm a citizen of the world.
Okay, I have to ask you about one more thing. You did this post recently. First of all, why the black eye? What happened?
Yeah, so obviously you can see the horses behind equine therapy. So we use the horses to look after orphans and stuff and train them to ride, etc. So yeah, I injured myself, one of the stallions, you know. It comes with the territory.
And you're making a good recovery, but you posted online this video of you as you are coming out of anesthesia.
My team posted it. I
Your
didn't
team
post
posted
Yeah.
it. And the first thing you say is, kill Israelis.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, obviously, I think, I didn't say, I said I want to kill Israelis. I want to kill all the Israelis. I don't even know actually what I said properly, right?
I mean, that sounds pretty...
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, obviously I don't ascribe to killing all Israelis, you know. But I think that's born out of a frustration. A lot of us that are seeing what's happening in Gaza from a humanitarian perspective inside our hearts, when we see that, again, not Jewish people, but Israeli Zionists are publicly using this genocidal language where they're not even shy about unaliving people. They're not shy about saying that they want to cleanse Gaza. Then what happens is naturally you'll have these feelings inside. You know, it's only natural where you want to defend these people and you want these people that are the aggressors, not innocent Israelis, of course, not innocent people that are not, because there's many good Israelis. There are Israelis that are against Netanyahu, against this right-wing government, against, you know, the crimes that are being committed in Gaza. They're the minority, but they exist.
Do you think Gaza has radicalized people? I mean, some will say that you were already radical. I mean...
Is it a bad thing to be radical?
You tell me.
Bill and Ted's bogus and radical, man. So, okay, so, I mean, again, these are just loaded words, right? What is that? I mean, I'm not a normal person. I refuse to be labeled as radicalized. I mean, any of the ideas that I hold, I'm happy to articulate them. I'm happy to discuss them. I'm happy to engage. And I'm happy to coexist with anybody, right? I think, you know, this idea of people being radicalized, it's just to make someone an other. It's just to make someone, oh, look, he's radicalized. Let's be afraid of those people. I think Gaza has woken people up. Gaza hasn't radicalized people. Gaza has woken people up to the truth that was already there. That these people are terrorizing them. These people want to cleanse Palestine of Palestinians. This is clear. I mean, if anybody can't see that now, then they just, you know, they're just wearing, you know, what did they say? They're wearing blinkers.
Wearing blinkers. I would say, having spent time in Israel, that there are a lot of Israelis who have no interest in pushing Palestinians out of Gaza or the West Bank and who view this in a radically different way. But that's another conversation.
Okay, that's fine. So you'll put that caveat in there. But when you're talking about Syria, you'll talk about the fringe groups like Muhajirin who are a minority. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is,
right,
when we're talking about
minorities matter,
but I'm saying to you, it's the opposite. I don't believe it's the minority. I believe that, and most people believe that in Israel, because of government policy, one, that government is democratically elected, right? Do they not represent the people? Even recent Israeli ministers themselves have come out and said that they believe that, you know, Israel is behaving in a genocidal way. I think it was Ahmed Olmert.
Olmert said that war crimes have been committed. Yes.
Yeah. So even they now are starting to see that. Look, this is very problematic. Is it barbaric? Seeing children decimated, is it problematic? Do we want to live in a world like that? The trauma that the children in Gaza are going through is unprecedented. This is going to be written in the annals of history. I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like this, where there's been a constant barrage of trauma, of killing, of starvation, of all of this stuff. What do you think that's going to breed? It's going to make Hamas look like teddy bears. What's going to come next? And that's what we have to look at. We've got to look at all of these years of foreign policy, in the Middle East, has that been conducive to peace in the Middle East, or has it spread wars? I think we have to, people like us from different worlds,
Who are willing to sit down
right,
and have
are willing to sit down and have a
conversations.
conversation. Like, I'm not cutting your head off because you're not wearing a hijab, am I?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's good of you.
I take that offensively. She said thank you. She said thank you.
I did want to ask you one more thing. Driving around Damascus, these billboards everywhere saying thank you, President Trump.
Yeah.
Lifting the sanctions, normalizing relations. Do you want to say thank you to President Trump?
Thank you, President Trump. I mean, look, I mean, it's politics, isn't it? It's politics, right? It's politics. Again, I'm not a politician. So, you know, I mean, Trump said he's going to bring peace to the Middle East. Let's hope that the Palestine issue can be solved. Syria seems to be in a better place. And, you know, if Trump had a hand in that and, you know, there's some good intention there, then you know what? Then that's a praiseworthy thing, right? But at the end of the day, politics is about power, right? And we'll see. Only time will tell. Only time will tell where Syria is going to go.
Talks, thank you so much.